Jeff Spitzer, advice from my best friend. Advice from my best friend, Jeff Spitzer.
Look at you, eating that slice of cake. You call yourself a health coach? You are a fraud. That's what my best friend said to me recently. Best friend, you're probably thinking? What kind of friend is that? You're right. Why do I keep this person in my life when all he does is feed on my insecurities and cut me down at every opportunity? He's known me longer than just about anyone, so I tell myself that deep down, he really does want what's best for me. Like in high school, when I wanted to ask out that special girl from history class, he told me I'd make a fool out of myself, and boy, was he right. But other times, like when I wanted to go back to school to learn to work with my mind rather than my body, he said I was just the stinky garbage man. What made me think I was capable of anything else? Now you're definitely wondering why I'd keep such a friend in my life. So am I. The thing is, this best friend of mine is me. He's that voice in my head, my inner critic. He's part of me. Fellow Toastmasters, guests, I used to think I was the only one with such a voice in my head, but I'm not, am I? You have a similar friend living between your ears as well. Constantly chattering, always with an opinion, usually a negative one. Perhaps it tells you where you lack, comparing you to others and reminding how you'll never measure up. Or maybe it's really good at finding fault in other people. Sometimes I just have to stop and tell myself to ignore the chatter and focus on what matters. For example, in 2017, I embarked on a journey to become certified as a health coach, despite my friends' objections. Who are you to help anyone with their diet? I pressed on because it was important for me to learn how to help people find balance in their relationship with food. Although, as I started coaching clients, I found that food itself wasn't the main problem, but all the stressors in life that affect food choices. Kids, work, relationships, and the chief culprit, that voice in their head that convinces them they are bound to fail yet again, so why even try? Anyone relate? I needed to learn how to help them ignore the chatter and focus on what matters. To do so, my wife and I enrolled in a life coaching program. That training required that we first explore our own inner dialogue and confront our limiting beliefs and gremlins. Gremlins being the core limiting belief we have about ourselves that tells us in one way or another we aren't enough. I'm not smart. I'm a fraud. I'll just never be as good as them. We did an activity to identify our primary gremlin, which we wrote on a piece of cardboard. This exercise culminated, for most of us, in tearing it up, stomping on it, destroying this representation of our gremlin as we resolved to ignore its lie-laced chatter and not let it hold us back any longer. Last to go was my wife. As she stood there, gazing at her gremlin, the class gathered around, encouraging her to tear it to bits. Instead, she hugged it. The rest of us exchanged puzzled looks when she muttered, "I don't want to destroy it. I want to love it. This gremlin of mine has been trying to protect me for my entire life." That wife of mine, she's wise, because it's true. These stories we tell ourselves about who we are or what we aren't, our subconscious creates them to prevent us from getting embarrassed, getting hurt. It just wants to keep us safe. The problem, of course, is that just like an overprotective parent that effectively shields their kids in bubble wrap, guilty, Playing it safe all the time limits us and prevents us from discovering our true potential. Truth is, sometimes we need to risk getting hurt in order to learn and grow. I had to feel that rejection at the high school dance to know that I could survive it and build the courage to keep trying, eventually meeting my incredible wife. Going back to college when my kids were young was not easy, but it enabled me to trade my garbage truck for a career where I could shower before work instead of after. Only now I don't get to bring home the cool things I find in the trash. I don't know that we can ever truly silence our gremlin, but with awareness, we can learn to determine when its protection is limiting us and make decisions from a place of growth rather than fear. We can learn to ignore the chatter and focus on what matters. How can you turn that voice in your head into the kind of friend whose advice you want to hear? I'll leave you with where you can start. The next time you find yourself scrolling social media and placing judgment on yourself or others, where you start thinking about something you want to achieve and that voice pipes up and says, "Ha, yeah, right," whatever it is, stop and consider. First, how true is it, really? Fraud? I've helped dozens of people lose weight and live healthier. Then reframe the thought. I am a good coach, and I'm allowed a slice of cake every now and then. A healthy diet doesn't necessarily mean that you never have a piece of cake. You just eat healthier foods more often than unhealthy. It's about balance. The same goes for our inner dialogue. Negative thoughts will creep in, but they don't need to rule you. Test them, reframe them. In time, you will learn to ignore the chatter and focus on what matters. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Jeff.